Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. Today we are going to continue the series about the layout automation and experimentation using the Central Station tree. Today we're going to look at the train station here closest to the camera. So the layout I have today is basically an oval here, a single line oval, and then it splits into two tracks where I can go to platform 1 or platform 2 on the station. Now the interesting thing here is, what do I do when I approach the station? So over there where we have the lint, what does it do when it approaches the station? I would hope that it chooses the platform that's actually free, but how do we actually accomplish that? In the same fashion, what do I do when I'm leaving the train station here? I want to make sure that two trains don't decide to leave at the same time and they actually collide over here where it merges into a single line. In the same fashion, there's multiple turnouts over here, so that's actually an interlocking area. So how do I make sure that only one train moves through this at a time? I'm going to use what I call a dispatcher strategy for that, and this can actually get pretty advanced. But I think you should still try it out. It's lots of fun when you finally get it to work. And yes, everything that has to do with automation requires a lot of experimentation. So enjoy the video. So I have updated the layout. So this is layout Abu Dhabi 12B. So why did I actually update the layout? Well, in the previous episodes where we experimented with the CS3 automation, the train station was actually a little weird. So I wanted a little more normal train station. So if you look down here at the bottom, you can see there's a more normal train station. So you can actually come in from the main line and you can choose one of two platforms and you can drive out from the main station again and out to the main line. Each of the platforms has an area where I want to stop. So that's the one here in orange. And then they have an area where you want to detect whether or not it's occupied. So that's the same for both of the platforms. The other reason I wanted to change the layout was, if we look at the main line here, in the previous layout, the main line wasn't really long enough to have more than one block. So there was only one block, so it became boring. So now there's actually two blocks. So right after the station here, there's a block 1. And there's a place to place the signal and to stop. And then there's another block here. And again, there's an orange section here where I would place a signal and stop. If we look at how this looks at the Central Station tree. Again, as before, I name critical places. So down at the main station, the place where I really want to stop the trains is CS3. And CS1. I name my platform 1 here. I name that MS1 for main station 1, and I name my platform 2 MS2 for main station 2. In the same way, the first block here, I use C6 as the place I want to stop before the signal, and I name that main line 1. And if we go over here, you see on the second block, I wanted the train to stop before the station at contact C8, and I name that main line 2. What do you need to think about when you do station automation? Well, when you arrive, so basically here at the main line 2, you have a turnout here, and that's turnout T2. Because you need to decide which platform do I go into. Do I go into platform 1, which is MS1, or do I go into platform 2, which is MS2? In the same fashion, when I'm leaving the train station, there's a point here after the train station, which is turnout T202. I need to make sure that the trains don't crash. Or collide. I don't want it such that both trains that are both on MS1 and MS2 decide to leave at the same time, Or let's say when the train on MS1 is leaving and it's halfway across the turnout here, I don't want MS2 to decide to start and then run into the first train. So the classic way of doing this is to use contacts. And what does that actually mean? Well, you actually make an alternating pattern. So the idea is when there's a train coming in on main station 1, so MS1, then it will trigger a train on main station 2, and that one will run around, and when it comes all the way around and it goes into main station 2, then it will trigger the train on main station 1. In that way you have an alternating pattern. So how does this work? Well, you have a CS3. So whenever it gets occupied, it would actually release the other train, which is parked at main station 2. It would do that by turning the signal green, so in this case S302 green. It would also make sure that the T2, so the turnout before here, would actually be ready for when the train at MS2 completes the loop and want to go in on the station again. So it will actually turn the turnout T2 straight, or I should say it want to set it straight. So that means the train on MS2 gets a green signal and can run all the way around the loop. When it comes over here, it's straight and it goes back in. And why does it need to be straight? Because remember, we had a train at MS2. In the same fashion, when the train comes in on MS2, it would actually release the train on MS1. It would do that by setting the signal S301 to green, and it would remember to change the turnout back so it's curved again. So it would actually turn. So that means when the train on MS1, it will go all the way around and then it will come back on this platform. And of course, you need to remember to set triggers also on the signals, such that when, for example, CS3 becomes free, then the signal S301 would actually be red, such that the next time it comes around, the train comes around, it will actually wait for the red signal. This works pretty easy if you saw it was two trains. It's an alternating sequence, works well with two trains. But how would it work if there was three trains? So you could have three trains here. You could have two here on the station waiting to go out. You could have one completing and then waiting to go in. However, whenever the train goes into a platform, you could still do something alternating with the contacts, and the turnout here just keeps alternating. But how does the train know which contacts it ends up on, or I should say which platform it ends up on, and hence which contact it should turn on? So you need to come up with a way of doing that. So it's easy with two trains, becomes more complex with multiple trains. The other thing is, how do we actually make this a natural sequence? Because it's alternating. There's always one train at the station, there's always one out on the layout. It doesn't matter much for my little layout because I only got a very small loop. But what if I had a longer loop? Maybe even going to a shadow station and coming back. By the way, if I have a shadow station and coming back, I would also have more trains. Don't forget that. But if there's a longer loop as well, I would like to see sometimes also both trains perhaps stopping at the train station, or maybe one overtaking the other. At the same time, you also need to think about, what if I made the station more complex? What if there was more platforms? What if there was more turnouts? Then the classic way becomes more cumbersome, and it can be very difficult to ensure that there are no collisions and that it actually works. However, the classic way is very easy, and I would highly encourage you to actually do this if you just want to do a simple automation on a simple layout. Remember the automation philosophy I'm using. And you can go back to the automation episode 5 to see how it's implemented and how you make the events and signals and blocks and so on. I will put a link in the description below. So what I'm trying to do is have signals that protect the blocks, and then I have two types of events. Route events, which would actually set the route or the route. In this case here, you can see there's a route going from MS1 to mainline 1, going east, and it does some checks and set the turnout and ends up setting the signal so the train can move. The train movement event, so here's the corresponding train movement event going from MS1 to ML1. It would actually call the route. So basically what the train would do is when it's ready to drive, it would actually call the route and ask it to set the correct route. Whenever the route sets the signal to green, then the train will be waiting for the green signal and then it can drive. Now let's go back to our little layout. So there's a couple of things we need to think about when we are arriving at the main station. So imagine we have a train here at ML2, so main line 2. You see it occupies the contact C8. By the way, it sticks out and it's a longer train, so it also occupies the contact C7. So we have a train here as main line 2, and it's waiting to go into the train station. So we need to think about, how do I choose the platform? How do I know which one is free? And I also want to make sure that it becomes natural as well. Do remember here that it's the train movement event that needs to determine the direction. So it's the route event that would need to set the route, but the train movement needs to be aware of where is it going. Now, why is this important? Well, if I have the train here at mainline 2 and the route sets the route so it goes down to main station 2, so the platform 2 here on the main station, then the train needs to know, oh, I need to stop at signal S302 and I need to stop at C1. Vice versa, if the route sends it the other way, then the train needs to know that it needs to stop at the contact C3, and it needs to stop when S301 is read. And by the way, it's incorrect for me to saying it's the route that determines it. It's actually the train that needs to determine which way to go and then request a route to that destination. So the train at mainline 2 will first determine which platform is free, and then it will request the appropriate route. So how do we do this? Well, basically the train arrives here at mainline 2, and we need to figure out which platform to go to. We do this by checking contact C3, is it free? So we assume if contact C3 is free, then the platform 1 is free, hence we can drive to MS1. In the same fashion, I can also check whether or not C1 is free, so contact C1 is free. If C1 is free, we assume that the platform 2 is free, and we can drive to MS2. So how does this look in the event? Well, basically what we do is we make a if macro. And you can see here it's a if macro for the train movement, right? So IC is my IC train. So my IC train is basically reacting to if MS1 is free, so that's platform 1 is free, then we'll do something. How will this actually work? Well, the first part of an if statement is checking is the condition. So the first square here is the condition. So basically it checks whether or not C3 is free, right? You see it's gray, it's not yellow. So gray is free and yellow is occupied. So if C3 is free, then we do what is in the first block. Otherwise, we will do what is in the second block here. So the first block you can is actually the train movement going from ML2 to MS1, right? So basically what it says here is, well, if MS1 is free, let's enter that one. And then it will actually, or I should say otherwise, it will just go to the other platform. So this will mean if there's nobody at MS1, it will go in there. If MS1 is occupied, it will go to MS2. Now, do remember that the MS2 could also be occupied. So in this simple if statement, what will happen is if there's somebody at MS1, it will always go to MS2. Of course, you could make this more complex. But in this case, it would mean if there's a train at both, it would decide to wait for MS2. So even though MS1 leaves first, it would still wait till MS2 becomes free. One thing you have to think about is you can consider making it a little more safe, testing whether or not the platform 1 is free. You could test that both C3 and C4, so both contacts are free. How do I do that? Well, you see up here in my if statement, I have another macro. You see there's an ampersand here. That's an AND. So that's the AND macro we have down here. So remember, you can long press. So I have long pressed on this, and now you can see it below. So it's a macro that actually verifies that C3 and C4 is free. So now we get basically the if macro will verify that the entire stretch of track going past platform 1 is free before it decides what to do. Now let's look at how the events look for entering the train station. So the first thing you need to consider is how are you going to make the overall event. So basically what I decided is I got my train over here at ML2 and I want to make it an event that actually moves it through the main station and all the way over to mainline 1. And the idea is this event should both choose which platform it is and stop at the platform as appropriate, and then it should continue afterwards. So if we go look at how the event look, I'll go into edit mode. So you see here I got a event here for going from mainline 1 to from mainline 1 to mainline 2, and it should stop at the main station. And if we look at it, the first thing it checks, let me just fold this back, is as we did in episode 5, is the train at the right place? Is the one at C8? And then we go into the if statement we had from before, basically checking whether or not MS1 is free for it to move forward. It uses the AND, so you can see, I need to long press. You can see it checks contact C3 and C4. And if we take this away, you can see that's down here. So that's here, C3 and C4. So we're checking that. Excellent. And if those are free, then I will execute the first one here. And if you see this one here is basically the intercity going from ML2 to ML1, and it stops at MS1. So I have an overall event that basically just says, let's get from mainline 2 to mainline 1, and we need to stop at the main station. And this one chooses whether or not it goes over main station 1 or main station 2, right? And this one here, it will call, the first one here will call if the main station 1 is free. If we go look at that one, it basically again checks that we are at the correct contact, and then it goes in and then it executes the mainline 2 to MS1. And you can see this is just a standard one where it checks it's the correct place. It sets the route, so the route mainline 2 to MS1, and then it waits for the signal, and then it moves in, and then it stops at the appropriate place, which in this case is C3, which is the MS1. in the and when that's done, so here now the train has stopped. So if we click on this one here, we can see it stops. So after the intercity arrives at MS1, it will actually stop for 5 seconds and then it will exit. So that's this one here. So that's the, if we click on it, we can better see the name. It's intercity MS1 to ML1. So it's going from main station 1 out to ML1, the same thing, checks I'm in the correct spot, and then it sets the route, then it waits for it, and then it drives until it arrives at ML1. So nothing surprising there. This is just a good example of how it actually uses the if to check whether or not the main station 1 is free, and then it will actually execute that one across the entire main station, and it will remember down here on this one to wait 5 seconds at the platform before it continues. And to no surprise, if MS1 is free, it chooses this one. Otherwise, which would mean if it's occupied, it would choose the other one. So you see that's mainline 2 to mainline 1 and stop at main station 2. So if we click at that, if we long press this one, you can see it actually looks like the other one. So there's one where it drives from main line 2 to MS2. And sorry, again, it waits 5 seconds. Here I could choose that maybe it waits longer at platform 2 than platform 1. However, it's the same, so 5 seconds. And after that, it will choose the other one. And then it will actually drive from main station 2 to mainline 1. Let's go see how this looks on the layout. Now let's look how it is on the layout. So you see my intercity is now at mainline 2. So basically over here on the contact 8, and it needs to go through the station. So we go look at our events. We find our intercity. We have it here. So this is the mainline 2 to mainline 1. Since it's free, it should choose the one going to, just move it a little up to main station 1. So let's try and execute this event. And we can see it actually went through the if, and now it chooses the main station 1. It's driving into the main station 1 now. We see it arrived at MS1. It waited for 5 seconds, and now it decided to leave. So in this way, I got one function to drive all the way through the station until it arrives over here at mainline 1. Now let's see what happens when there's somebody at main station 1, so platform 1. So you can see on the layout here that the lint is actually parked at main station 1, so platform 1. So what happens? Again, you can see here in the event, we got the if, and now we would actually expect it to go to the second part here and actually take main station 2. So let's try that out. We hit start. And we can see the intercity actually figured out, there's somebody parked at MS1. Now let's go to MS2. So you see it chooses this one part here of the if. And right now it's going. It stops here at MS2 and it waits 5 seconds. And then it carries on to ML2 in exactly the same way. So as you can see here, I made one function that actually determines whether or not MS1 is free, and then it chooses either the MS1 platform or platform 1, or MS2, which is platform 2. Now let's look at leaving the main station. So as we talked about before, one of the crucial points here is which train goes first. And how do we make sure that they do not collide over here after the train station at the turnout T202. So basically we need some kind of interlocking to ensure that only one train at a time will go through this area, because in truth it's not only this turnout 202, it's also turnout 205. So basically we need an interlocking area over here. How do we do that? Well, one strategy is to say that one platform always have priority, such that, for example, trains at main station 2 always wait for main station 1, such that if main station 1 is occupied, main station 2 cannot leave. So that basically means main station 2 always waits till main station 1 is free. In this way, main station 1 can leave whenever it likes and go out. However, main station 2, as long as C3 and C4 are occupied, it will wait. So you could do it that way. That's a priority strategy. However, there's a couple of issues with this. It sounds pretty simple here if I just got a station and going out to a main line. But what if I have a branch line or I have something more complex? You can actually see on my layout here, I got an extra branch here going around and into the branch station. What if there's a train waiting up there? Well, then that train could also wait on MS1, right? However, what if this one actually makes it all the way around and occupies again without giving the others a chance to get in there, and so on. And you could consider an even more complex station. So it can be difficult to implement this priority strategy. However, it will work. There is, though, one thing you need to think about. Let's say MS2 actually checks whether or not MS1 is free, and then it starts moving. What if a train comes from ML2, goes through platform 1 without stopping, and then just continues? Remember, I didn't have any weight on the platform 1, so maybe MS2 is moving out, maybe it hasn't made it up to C5 yet, so the train at MS1 will not detect that after the turnouts is not free yet. So it could be on its way to the turnouts or in the turnouts. And if MS1 just thinks, oh, everything is good, it could continue. At the same point, you also need to think about, what about the tail of the train? Did the MS2 train actually make it all the way across? However, do remember that's where the contacts after the turnouts actually helps you out. You can fix this by doing some interlocking using either a light or a contact and so on. So this is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to try to make a dispatcher strategy. So one of the challenges in the Central Station 3 is if there's a train parked at platform 1 and platform 2, and they both want to try and decide, I go out there. So let's say both trains request a route going to ML1. This is two events running in parallel, two events running concurrently. I have no way to ensure that these two events either stops and waits for each other's, or do not execute at the same time, or only one of them makes a choice. And I tried a lot of different ways, from if statements, macros, to triggers, to control contacts, and so on. I did not come up with a good, safe way to do this. So I went the other way and did a dispatcher strategy. So the idea is there's only one event at all times that decides, is it MS1 or MS2 that goes through the interlock area out here, so the turnouts. How do I do that? Well, if there's a train at MS2, what it will do is it will request for access in the interlocking, and then it will sit and wait till the signal turns green. Then there will be a dispatcher that magically says, it's your turn now, and then it will turn the signal green, and then the train on MS2 will actually move across, and then when it comes to ML1 up here, it will then release the interlock area. Now the trick here is to make the dispatcher. So let's go to the Central Station tree to see how we do that. So now I'm at the Central Station tree. So what have I added? Well, I've added a couple of lights down here. You see it says MSE, MS1. So that stands for Main Station East. So this is the eastern part. So Main Station East is what I call this interlocking area up here. And then I got MS1. So the idea is when the train is sitting here at platform 1 and it wants to leave, it turns on this light, and then the dispatcher can react to it and then determine how many people are actually waiting to go through the interlock area, or I shouldn't say people, how many trains are waiting, and then it can choose the one that's appropriate. In the same fashion, if there was a train down here at platform 2 or MS2, then when it wants to leave, it would actually choose the light over here for the Main Station East interlocking, so this one over here, and it would say now there's somebody on Main Station 2 waiting. Now you could say, why do I have these lights here? Because I might as well just use the contact, right? So when C3 is occupied, it means it's waiting. Yes and no. Remember, I want this to be natural. I don't want the train to leave already when it arrives at the platform. Maybe it's stopping and waiting. You saw the intercity before, it waited 5 seconds before it continues. But the lint, I've actually made that such that it either waits 10 seconds, 45 seconds, or turns off the engine, waits more than a minute, and then turns on again. And in all that time, it's actually not really wanting to go through the Main Station East interlocking area out here. So then the train on the other platform. So if the lint is on platform 2, then the train on platform 1 should be free to actually move through. So that's why I made these lights here. So the lights are actually for indicating now I'm ready. And the way it works is that the route understands that when it has been requested and it goes off again, then it's been given. So the idea is you turn on the light saying, I want to go through the Main Station East interlocking area. When the light turns off, that means now you have sole access and you're the only one that has access. Now, then when the train moves up to the C6 or main line 1, then it will actually release it. So how does this actually look in the events? Let's open the events and take a look at it. So right now I'm in the intercity group. Let's look at how we move from Main Station 1 to Main Line 1. So it's actually not that surprising. It's exactly as we would expect. We verify. Oh, let me just here make sure we can see the contacts here. So we verify that the intercity or the CS3 is actually occupied. Then we set the route for going from MS1 to ML1. Then we wait for the signal and then we drive. So the intercity train does not see all the complexity of the dispatcher that we are trying to implement using the lights for the Main Station East interlocking area. It just does what it always does. All the trick and the complexity is hidden in the routes. So if we go here, look at the route. So now I want to find the route going from MS1 to ML1. So that's this one here. I'll close this one behind again. Let me just move this around so it's better, easier to see. So basically what the route does is we first check is somebody on the C3. We remember to check if somebody wanted to pause this. Then we verify whether or not the block, So ML1 is actually free. So you see it makes a wait for C5 and C6 to double check that it's actually free on the other side of the interlock area. Why do I do this? Because I don't want to lock the interlock area unless I actually can go somewhere, right? So you see in this case there's somebody there, but let's assume it's free. Then what I will do is I will turn on the light. Can I actually place it here in between? Yes, I can. Okay. Then I will turn on the light. So main station east, MS1, saying now I want to be able to go through the interlock area. And then I wait till it turns off. By the way, when I've gotten the area, I do a double check. Is it still free on the other side? Why is that? Because if I'm sitting on main station 1, maybe somebody else moved from main station 2 up to here and actually occupied the mainline 1 block. So I do a double check here. So I double check whether or not there's somebody up there before I move into the area. Then I set the turnouts, and then I set the green light for the intercity so it knows it can move forward. Now the last thing I want to do is when the intercity moves forward, remember that's in the train movement event, it will arrive at some point in time up here at mainline 1. When it arrives at mainline 1, so I extend this event for the route till somebody arrives at mainline 1. At that point in time, I actually release the interlocking area. And why do I wait for that? Well, I want to make sure that the train I got down here at platform 1 actually made it up, not only triggered C5, but went all the way to C6, because at C5, the train might still have its tail in the main station east interlocking area. So I wanted to go all the way over there, right? So now we saw the intercity waits nicely till the signal, in this case S301, turns green. The route waits nicely till it's been given access by the main station east MS1 light going off. Now who makes this light go off? Well, the way I've done it is when you go up here to the release, that's actually the one that will determine what happens. Okay, so let's go back into our events. We go into the interlock, and here we have the main station east release. So what does that actually do? So the first thing it does is it set an extra little contact here. I will talk about that one later. But then actually what it does is it goes into a loop. Actually, let me just 1 second. Let me go into edit events, because then it's easier to maneuver. All right. If I click on this one here, it goes into a main station east loop release. Okay, we expand this one here. What does that actually do? Well, it's a macro. And the first thing it does is it checks if there's somebody waiting both at MS1 and MS2. Okay. We have a standard if statement here. There's an AND where it goes in. So here we got an AND that checks that is there somebody both at MS1 and MS2. And it does that by checking whether or not are both lights turned on. If both lights are turned on, so both a train at MS1 and MS2 actually would like to go to the through the interlock, then we'll execute the first one. Otherwise, we'll execute the second one. Remember, the if is always the condition, then if the condition is true, and then if the condition is false. So what it will do here is, now I will call a random. So if you look at this one, I will do a random, because now there's two waiting. There's both somebody waiting on MS1 and MS2, so I will randomly choose one of them. So I use the random macro. we got the random macro down here. The random macro, whatever are of elements in the random macro, it will choose one of them. So you see the first one here is MSE, so that's actually release MS1. So what it will do is the interlock area will release main station 1, or it will release main station 2. If we go and look at this one here, now you see when I expanded that, a scroll bar appeared. So the trick here is now you need to scroll up, and then you can see. So let's go back again. If there is 2 trains waiting, both on MS1 and MS2, then we do random. Then we randomly say, let's MS1 actually go. What it will do is it will actually just turn off the light. So now it's decided only one is going, right? So in this case, now the intercity we spoke about before can move forward. It could also randomly choose the other one, and then you see, then it just turns that light off. So this is basically just one that says either random this or random that. Don't forget, when you do the random, in here you could set a weight. So you see this one here for choosing MS1 is weight 2. This one over here for choosing MS2 is weight 1. So that means there's a twice as big a chance of choosing main station 1 or platform, or releasing platform 1, I should say, over releasing platform 2. So I made this because to me the platform 1 is the main one that has slight more priority than the other one. So that's the way you implement that one. If we go all the way back to the if statement here, so this if was we decided to randomly choose. If there's not one waiting on each one, then we basically go in and check here, and we say if there's somebody waiting at MS1. Okay, if somebody is waiting at MS1, and now it jumped a little around, so here is somebody is waiting at MS1, then we basically double check here that yes, there is actually somebody waiting at MS1, and then so this is an if somebody actually is waiting at MS1, then we release MS1. Otherwise, we do something else, and this is the same release as before. So you see I long press, the scroll bar comes up, and now I actually scroll down, and you can see it's releasing MS1. So if there's somebody waiting at MS1, okay. And if there's not somebody waiting at MS1, then we check if somebody's waiting at MS2. If somebody is waiting at MS2, so there's a light at MS2, then we release MS2, and we go down and see that's what it does here. Now, notice there's something very, very special happen here. And why is that? Well, if we go through all our if statements, the first if up here, so that's this one here, we call this if. It checks whether or not there's somebody waiting both at MS1 and MS2, then we choose the random. Then we check whether or not somebody is waiting at MS1. So if somebody is waiting at MS1, we choose the MS1. Now we check if somebody is at MS2, and then we choose the MS2. So now we've been going through the sequences. There was somebody waiting both at MS1 and MS2, or at MS1, or at MS2. Now we're missing the last one. There's nobody waiting at all, because in that case I can't do anything. So in that case I have to do something smart. And what is the smart I do here? Well, you see I actually set a light here. So I have another light. So this is main station east interlock area waiting. So this light indicates if it's on, sorry, this is a contact. This contact indicates if it's on, I need to wait for the next train that comes, right? Because there's no trains waiting to go through the interlock area. So let me wait till a train arrives and requests access. So that's actually what this one does. And how does that happen? Well, if we go all the way up here, we look at the loop. We first had the if that checked if somebody's waiting. Here we have in the loop, you see that we actually continuously check for whether or not I need to keep on waiting here. Okay, so here I keep on waiting, or I should say I continue in the loop if I need to wait. So that means if I don't need to wait, then I will actually break out of the loop here and carry on, right? Or I would actually just stop the loop. So the loop keeps on continuing as long as this contact here is occupied or yellow. So that's why whenever I start the release, I start by setting it as not occupied or as gray, because that means that if I go through all of these if statements down here and I actually chose somebody, then it will not set the MSE, so the main station east interlock waiting to yellow. However, if we ended up going all the way down and I didn't find a train waiting, then I will actually set this one to yellow. And you can see I have the contact over here. So this is the part I would say that makes it a little tricky. In order for this to work, there always have to be a dispatcher sitting and looking at it. So when you call the release, it will check immediately if there are some trains, and then it will start waiting if no trains are there. Now, we have to be careful when waiting. So let's go back to the release here. So we have the loop. So this is the loop here. Now, if this just keeps running through this loop very, very fast, because see, there's no train movement or anything like that. I know I have W's, and by the way, remember to have W's all the way through this, right? All the way through. You see, even when we go all the way down here, so it's all W, so it's all waiting, right? When we call the sub event, we wait, right? So here we wait all the way down. Okay. Even though we do this, this will actually execute very, very fast. So that will be within milliseconds, it will go through the loop and then it will go again. And if you just let it do that, it will actually overload the central station tree. So the last little trick here we have is on the macro, I wait 1000 milliseconds. 1000 milliseconds is 1 second. So that actually means we go through this loop once a second. So if we found a train, then we'll break the loop here. If we did not find a train, we will wait a second and then we'll look for a train again that wants to go through the interlocking area, and then we'll keep on doing that till there is a train. When we find a train, we will break the loop. All right. So this loop starts whenever somebody releases, because here comes the other complexity with using this method. So let's assume there's a train down here, or let's just assume we start the entire automation, and at that point in time, nobody has called the release. That means if there's a train waiting down here at MS1 and there's a train waiting at MS2, so let me just say that's this situation here. So there's 2 trains waiting. There will never be a release because nobody will hit this one. So what do I do? Well, what I do is I go into my run event, okay? And in here, remember I had the reset, I had the run for the lint, I had the run for the intercity, and then I actually call the release in here. So in my run, before anybody actually gets to it, I call my release. Because why is that? Because if there's no trains waiting, then it will wait till a train arrives. If there's already a train waiting, then it can actually do it at this point in time. Now, the final thing you have to consider is, now I just randomly started this event. So if I do my stop home and I want to stop the automation, then there will always be an event somewhere hanging, right? one for each interlock area. So what can I do about that? Well, that's why I have in the interlock, so here I have my release, here I have my loop. So I have the one here that breaks out, but I have another contact here. If this one is on, then I also want to break the loop. So I want to do something such that when I have to restart the automation, I'm sure there's no loops hanging. So basically, if this one stop locks actually turns yellow, then it will actually break out of this loop. Okay, so then I go back to my run, and what I do is the run calls the reset. The first thing I do in my reset is set the stop locks to yellow, so that means now all locks, lock events, release lock events that are running will actually stop, and then I give it some time. So you see here my all reset all the way at the end. I turn it gray again, such that we will allow the following ones, release events, actually to hang if they need to. So that's a bit of a cleanup of the events I need to do. Now let's look at how it actually works, the dispatcher strategy. So I'm doing this in a test mode. So as you can see, I got the intercity on platform 1 or MS1 on the layout, and I got the lint on platform 2 or MS2 on the layout. So what we want to do now is make sure we are ready to start. In order to do that, let me just click events and go into event control. You can see there's terminate events. It's not gray, that means there's actually some events running. So I hit that one. We verify by clicking it again. See, now it's gray, so that means no events are running. Then I go into my run category, and then I hit my reset to make sure everything is reset. Most excellent. Now let's go to my lint, and I'm going to turn the engine on, so that I have this one, the lint on, and we hear that one starting. Excellent. Now I'm going to put it in pause mode. Okay, so it's paused because I don't want the lint to move right now. So now I want to find the event going from the MS2, which is parked at, to the mainline 1, so across the main station east interlock, so the MSE interlock. So where do we have that? So here we got MS2 to ML1. If we open this one up and I hit start, you can see nothing happens. Why was it nothing happens? Because we're waiting for the pause, which is exactly what we expected since we turned the pause on. We're going to the intercity. Let me turn the engine on as well here. So we have that here. So it's starting up. You can hear it. Excellent. And on this one here, it's on MS1, so we want to start the MS1 to ML1. We hit that one. We can go in and verify. Yeah, it's also sitting on the pause. Now the last thing we have to do is to remember to start the dispatcher. Remember, I put that actually into the run event. So we go to the interlock. Here I got the MSC release. You can see nothing happens in this one right now. I'm going to hit start. Now you can see once every second it looks like something happens. Usually you have to fold out 2 layers to make sure that you can see something. But really it goes through the loop here once a second to see if somebody is or a train wants to go through the interlock, so the main station east interlock. You can also see over here that the contact is yellow, so it means it's continuously waiting. What we can do now is we can release the interlock and then see what happens. Oh, I'm sorry, we can release the pause and then see what happens, right? Because remember, both my lint and my intercity is actually waiting to go through the interlock. So I release my pause, and you can see now that the intercity actually got access first. You see here on my MSE release, nothing is happening because it's not waiting, because the dispatcher is waiting for a new release. And now you saw that the intercity actually came to ML1. It was very hard to see, but the MSE release actually briefly ran. If you noticed before, the MSE MS2 was actually lit. So it actually means now that, let me just pause this just to be sure. If we go and look at the lint, so we got here the, where do we have it? Here you can see the MS2 to ML1. It actually did get the release from this dispatcher. See, here's the light saying I would like to leave from dispatcher, and then it waited for the gray and it got that one. So it is actually ready, and it actually has the interlock right now. So it's just waiting, as you can see here, it's waiting for the intercity to actually move away from the block 1. So if we go to the intercity now, here, and we can move that manually here from ML1 to ML2. As soon as we do that, well, I activated it now, but as you can see, I'm hanging on the pause because I would actually like to see what happens over in the lint when this occurs. So we have that here. So you can see it's actually waiting. Okay, we unpause it. Now the intercity is moving. And soon we'll see now it got free. All right. And now the route got selected. We got a green to the lint. The lint is actually moving. And you see here in the route, it's waiting till we get to C6. As soon as we hit C6, you barely noticed it. But as soon as we hit C6, it actually did the release. And now you can see the MSE waiting is actually running again. So if we go back to the interlock here, you can see it's actually running again once a second and waiting for another train to arrive. And now we got the intercity over just before the station. So what we could do now is we could try and send the intercity through the station. I'm just gonna take the one that picks the free platform. So that's this one here. So I'm just gonna run that one. And you see it actually enters the station. Now I'm gonna close this window because we're gonna look at the light down here. Stops at the station, waits 5 seconds. Or more. Well, maybe we hardly managed to see it. Let's see. Oh no! Now it's actually waiting for the track ahead of it to be free before it actually requests it. Right. So it has waited the 5 seconds. All right. So we go to the lint and we move that one to the next one. And let's see if I can be quick and go back and see what's going on here. Okay, you saw that it requested the interlock, it got it, and now it moves through it. So this is actually the way it works. Upon every release, you let a train through. If there is nothing released, then what you will see here in the interlock, so in the release, you will actually see it looping. And again, you see it looping because nobody is waiting. Most excellent. As a reminder, so what I just did now was actually started in test mode. As a reminder, let's go into events and see how it is when we start it up for running. Remember, the all reset actually starts by setting the stop locks to yellow and then releasing it at the end. By the way, since earlier in the video, I also reset the MSE weighting. That's not actually really necessary. It's just very handy because then you can all time see if it's yellow here on your layout, that means there's actually something waiting in the interlock. And then the other thing, as part of the all run, we have as one of the last is actually starting the dispatcher for the release. So here you see the, or for the interlock, so here you see main station east release, which will actually start the dispatcher and it will wait, which enables you to actually just go ahead and start everything. Now let's go back to the choosing platform, which we actually started with. So if we had the intercity over here at mainline 2, then we saw that it had an if that said, if main station 1 is free, then go into main station 1 or platform 1, otherwise go to main station 2. Now the challenge with that is, what if both are occupied? Then it will always in the if just check, oh, I cannot go to platform 1 or MS1, then I'll go to platform 2 or MS2. However, what if the train that is on MS1 leaves first? Then it will still be waiting for the MS2 or the platform 2. So the solution to that is you could actually make another dispatcher for this, and it could actually sit and wait until somebody is ready to enter the train station and then trigger it that way. So you could do that. By the way, you can also make other variants. So for the intercity, I made it such that it always first looks at platform 1, then at platform 2. For the lint, I actually tried a different algorithm. If nobody is there, then just do it random. Otherwise, look at platform 2 first and then platform 1. So there's various ways you can do this. Whoa, that was a tough one, especially when we got into the dispatcher strategy. However, don't be too worried, because the dispatcher strategy is actually not really that difficult. The essence here basically is when a train wants to leave, it turns a light on, then the dispatcher, which is already running, will actually check out which train is it that actually has its turn, and then it will turn the light off for the train that it thinks needs to go through the interlock section, and in this case the main station east interlock. Whenever the train moves through and then it comes to a release point, so in this case it's the lint here, when it comes over here to main line 1, it will release, and then it will actually release whatever train is waiting. If there's no train waiting, it will just go in a loop and every second check if there's a new one there. And then that's actually how it moves through it. So in a future episode, I will look at making this interlock area here more advanced, because I actually do have a branch station here that can come in and I can go into the branch station as well. Furthermore, you also got another critical area here on the branch line. So over from coming from the main station and going through here and over to the branch station here, that area here is a single line, but it goes both ways. So on the main line here, I only go one way around, so I don't need to think too much about it. I just need to make sure that trains in front of me, they are away, and then I can move forward. But in here, I'm going to move two ways. I'm also going to use the dispatcher strategy for this. So basically, in essence, 2 trains could be waiting over at the main station to go into the branch station, and 2 trains on the branch station could be waiting there to go back on the branch line as well. However, we will do that at a later stage. For the dispatch strategy, maybe one little tip I didn't say is, if you don't do the dispatcher just immediately, you can start by testing it by just making the route turn on the light and wait for the light to be turned on again. And then you can be the manual dispatcher. So before you make the guts of the release, you can actually just unclick the light or click on the light or turn off the light, and then it will run. So that's one way of getting a little further, and then you can actually see what happens. What I like about the dispatcher strategy is, as you see here, things move around a little more random. The train actually passes each other at the station, and so on. So it makes it a lot more interesting than what I would say just the standard way of doing it, or the classical way where one train is always at the station and it alternates. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have tips and tricks, or if you have a good way of doing the train automation with the Central Station 3, please let me know. Please give the video a thumbs up, and I really hope that you enjoy the videos I'm making. So I'm just gonna try and stop the train here when they come next. So I have also changed the stop at home, by the way, so it's out on the track. So this one should be home now and powering down. And now this one here should stop over here. And everything is nicely powering off. Enjoy model railroading, and I hope to see you next time. Enjoy!